Welcome to BossPodcast.com, sponsored by GatewayBusiness.com. I am your co-host, Fredrick Douglas Bussey. Along with my co-host, Richard Pierce, we're here to help you walk through the lonely journey of being an entrepreneur, to realize all the things that you've wanted to accomplish in your business and in your life, which is especially appropriate for the episode we're going to talk about today. But first, Richard, how are you today?
Doing very well. Doing very well. I'm excited about today's topic, the quote unquote work-life balance that's often talked about.
Yeah. We'll get to other housekeeping things here. I want to get into the topic because I think it's really, really important. I think that people talk about more about work-life balance when they are in the corporate space. Because it's very easy. You feel like the demands of the schedule and the rigors of work are really demanding on you. I don't think we talk about it enough for business owners and entrepreneurs because the pressure is there, but the conversations aren't, right? We talk a lot about how lonely business can be. Oh, and let me say this before we jump in, for those of you who are watching live, if you have questions or comments, feel free to drop those in the comments below. Let us know what your thoughts are. If you're watching this on replay, then please do the same. Drop a hashtag replay and let us know. We love to be able to respond in real time or in comments as well. So we want to make sure we're offering as much value to you in the moment as we possibly can. Richard, why is it so important for us to be talking about this for business owners? Whereas normally it's not something that we really discuss a whole lot.
Yeah, I think it goes back to there are a lot of items in business that are often talked about, yet they aren't explained in great detail. So that's one of our continuing themes for every show that we have is we want to take words, phrases, definitions that people hear on a regular basis and break them down into very digestible, bite-sized nuggets so that you can implement and execute and ultimately make your business better than it is currently. Because that's what a lot of people do is they get stuck at a plateau and don't know how to get past that. They have a lot of information in their head, yet not all of the details, all of the individual steps. So again, we're going to tell you every step necessary, unlike a lot of platforms that just tell you step 1, 3, 7, and 12, right? And
Right.
but what are all the other steps? What happens when it doesn't go theoretically as people say it will? How do you actually make your vision reality there? So I think that's one reason when I hear people say, for example, the work-life balance, that's why I think it's so important. I mean, we're roughly 21% into 2024, and very few people, if anybody, have really accomplished 21% of what their goals are for 2024. How about
Yeah.
how about your perspective? Why do you think it's an important topic to cover?
I think it's important because one of the things that we don't do a lot of times as business owners is get out of our own heads. And so the pressure of things is always happening, right? So your spouse is telling you about the things that are going on at the house. Are you going to be there for the kids? We've got to take care of this. When are we going to take a vacation? Right. But as a business owner, the business lives in your head 24 hours a day, especially if you don't have the tools and structures in place to be able to step away from it at any time and it can run without you, right? Or grow without you. And so that pressure lives there side by side, kind of swirling around. And if you don't know how to balance those two out, if you don't have the proper frameworks and the perspective on that, it's very, very difficult, very, very challenging to be able to navigate that and come through that in one piece. A lot of people, their health suffers, a lot of relationships suffer, and the business suffers because, as we'll talk about here today, a lot of the things that we want to accomplish don't get accomplished because we don't have the perspective and the real skill set to balance those things out. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree 1,000%. Like you said, unlike when you work a job for someone else, you can turn that off most of the time. But a business, even though if you're not working it with clients or employees, turning it off mentally becomes a challenge. So
Mm-hmm.
let's get a little bit more into some detail here. So when people, and here's some of the fallacies that I've heard. So one of them is when you have a work-life balance, you want to look at the word balance. Let's start breaking that down. The word
Mm-hmm.
balance itself.
Mm-hmm.
So balance, there is no such thing, because balance in itself means basically, if you, let's say you have a car that has a balance, it's 50%
Mm-hmm.
in the front and 50% in the back. There's some equal proportions,
Right. Right.
right? So you have to take out the word balance and know there is no balance. The good news is there's ratios. If you look
Right.
at, right, you look at any recipe, let's say you're making, a shake, a smoothie, for example, that has spinach in it, has, like mine, I'll put spinach in mine, I'll put carrots, I'll put yogurt, chia seeds, flax seeds, just a wide variety of healthy items in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't put equal amounts of everything, right? There's not the equal amount of spinach, equal amount of yogurt, equal amount of chia seeds, equal amount of orange juice, equal amount. I put carrots in mine. There's no balance, quote unquote, for people
Mm-hmm.
that are watching the video can see my quotes here. If there was a balance there would be an equal weight of carrots to yogurt, right? An equal amount of all of those items. But with any
Mm-hmm.
recipe, there's a ratio. For
Right.
example, I'll put, maybe, depending on the size of the shake, maybe 3 or 4 little baby carrots. Yet I have
Mm-hmm.
half a cup of yogurt with that,
Right.
right? I have 3 ounces of spinach. So
Mm-hmm.
so you can see already, maybe I have 8 ounces of orange juice. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you see that there's ratios there, not balance.
Right.
So right. So I think that's the first thing, is you got to look at what are those ratios
Mm-hmm.
for optimal performance, for really achieving what you want your desired outcomes to be. That's the very, very first thing. Use a different framework in your mind of what those ratios are. So, for example, one of the items I want to do with that shake, one of my desired outcomes with that shake is I want to be hydrated. I want
Mm-hmm.
to have, right, I want to have optimal gut health.
Right.
So, right. So that's why I have the yogurt. That's why I have the spinach in there.
Mm-hmm.
And right. So, that's why there's, a small amount, there's carrots in there, but there's a small amount of carrots.
Mm-hmm.
If I had, let's just say, for example, if I tried to make it a balance and had as much carrots as yogurt, that would not be optimal for gut health, because
Right.
right,
Right.
so I'm thinking it's kind of funny, just thinking if I had that many carrots, it'd be like, what in the world is this?
It wouldn't be yogurt. It would just be carrots.
It'd be carrots, exactly. Have a little dip or something. I could dip the carrots into the yogurt or something like that. So, but if I didn't have more orange juice, for example, I have more orange juice and I do carrots, and the orange juice helps to liquefy the drink, so I can drink the shake, so I can drink it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
so again, that's why you want to look at ratios more than you look at balance and
Right.
balance and everything. So
So
let me
work.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say work-life ratio is a much better phrase, right? What's the work-life formula, work-life recipe that you want,
Yes.
and helping people to focus on the outcomes, which we talk a lot about with our clients, um, because a lot of times people think they know what they're working towards, and they really don't have any idea, or you've built your business to $1 million, $2 million. You've got a certain team, right? You've been doing it for 4 or 5 years, 7 or 8 years, whatever the case may be. Where you thought or you wanted to be when you first started is nowhere near where you really need to be or want to be
Great point.
7 or 8 years in, right?
Great
And
point.
so when you it's just like riding a bicycle. When you're riding a bike, you have to exert a tremendous amount of effort to get the flywheel going, to get your momentum. And then as you're coasting, now it's more about direction and things like that. But if your focus was, I'm going to keep pedaling as hard as I was at the very beginning the entire way, you're going really, really fast, but you're not focused on steering because you didn't have to think about steering. But so it's the percentage of your attention, your focus on the various aspects of riding the bike, the balance, steering, pedaling, etc. Those things can shift depending on where you are and where you want to be. If I'm going uphill, I've got to exert more energy than if I'm going downhill. But I also need to be focused if there's more traffic, if there's more obstacles in my way, if I'm off-road versus on-road. So those are some of the thoughts that came up when you were talking about that. Sure. I love the work-life ratio.
Yeah. And I like what you said too, is there's changing environments. Like with riding the bike, maybe there's traffic, maybe there's weather involved, maybe there's rain, right? And then like you said, and I think it was really good to circle back what you said in that part of the show is you may have had your business, let's say 6 or 7 years. And I ideologically, you thought it would be further ahead. It's not where you thought it would be at this stage. You've plateaued out. You've plateaued out. So with that, let's go a little bit deeper into the ratios. So all of our frameworks are built on fundamental foundations. In other words, what's the most important part of that foundation? And you want to focus on that consistently. So I'll go into, so I'll tell you, I often ask clients in the beginning, who is your number one client? Who is your number one client? And some of them, what they'll do is they'll think, well, let's see who pays me the most money. And I'm like, nope, that's not what the answer is. Your number one client is the first person you see in the mirror every morning. Right.
Right.
So back to the ratios, put yourself first, right? As part of this ratio, and put yourself first. And I'll say this, it may be a little controversial, but you want to put yourself first before your family. And put a little asterisk there. It doesn't mean that you go ahead of your family, but for example, if you're not healthy, how are you going to provide for your family? If you get really, really, really sick, you won't be in a good situation for your family. So that's when I say put yourself before anything else. You have to, like, for example, is your health there, your mental and your physical health. Yeah. And especially when it comes to the business, put yourself before the business. And I know this is right? And it's somewhat counterintuitive. Well, like a customer's paying me money. Well, I have employees that depend on me. That's fine. And at the same time, that's why you want to look at, and again, we'll go in a different episode. We'll go into how do you have an optimal, how do you build your calendar, mistakes to make, best practices for your calendar. Yet for the work-life ratio, which we've now changed it from balance to work-life ratio, putting yourself, blocking out time, do time blocking for client number one. Do I eat breakfast the same day? The same time of every day of the week as much as possible. There may be exceptions slightly, right? But do I pick breakfast, hydration, the quote unquote morning routine? Do I have that as consistently as humanly possible?
Yeah.
Right. And the reason, again, a lot of these things are important is because business is chaotic. It's always going to be chaotic. Wealth is created by optimizing chaos. Wealth is created by optimizing chaos. So it's not minimizing it. It's not maximizing it. It is making the most out of the chaos that happens. And part of that is, again, back to client number one, Just
Mhm.
blocking out time in your calendar where you take care of client number one. Do you go to the gym? Do you, for example, family time? Do you block out family time? I'll give you an example. Let's say it's Saturday between 12 and 6. That's your
Mhm.
family time. No
Mhm.
clients, no employees. It doesn't matter if an employee has an emergency, you're with your family. You
Right.
could right, you could even be that strict as long as you communicate to your team, to your employees, and to your customers. Family time is Saturday, 12 to 6, and I'm just using this again as an example. Everybody's is going to be different, yet you
Mhm.
could have that as a subset of taking care of client number one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I love you make that distinction, client number one. Jay Abraham always would make the distinction of calling his clients instead of customers, right?
yes,
Because the word client means one who's under your protection. And when you put it in those terms, you have to protect yourself because right now you're the most valuable asset to your business, right?
very true.
And anything happening, the greatest liability is something happening to you. So if your health is not optimized, if your mindset is not optimized, those things compromise your ability to be able to run the business, to be able to grow your business, and to be able to leave it to your family, to be able to create the generational wealth that most of our clients want to be able to create. So I love that terminology. Being client number one, taking care of client number one is vital, vital, vital.
Yes, yes, it is very vital, just like oxygen and heart rates and everything like that. It's very, very vital. So let's look at another item. So, or would you rather go a little deeper into client number one? Well, you want to go in some items there. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's go deeper into the very specific items that we do with clients for client number one. And
Hmm.
again, there's other components of work life, but I just want to go to actionable steps that our listeners can cover today for client
Yeah.
number one. So
Hmm.
I actually have a visual process on gatewaybusiness.com. Gatewaybusiness.com. Go there and take a look, and you want to look at a framework called optimal nutrition. So it will go into great detail about nutritionally dense foods for you to eat. And
Hmm.
so, for example, you know, hydration. Do you drink a gallon of water a day?
Hmm.
And right at first, it's going to sound like, wow, that's a lot. Well, how much do you drink and do you continuously improve that? You know,
Right.
right? Because majority of people are dehydrated. And that's
Hmm.
just, I'm not a doctor, I'm not anything of that nature, but being dehydrated is one of the most often overlooked health items that is one of the most easiest to fix, right?
Hmm.
It is drink water, drink enough water. Don't just say I drink a lot, but make it objective. What is a measurement? How much have you drank in the last 24 hours? And this is
Hmm.
water. It's not soda doesn't count, not to be I know soda is a bad habit a lot of people have. Just start making that transition. These sports energy drinks, whatever they call them, that doesn't count. Just
Hmm.
focus on good old fashioned healthy water. So aim
Yeah.
to drink more. Ideally, again, if you're athletic, it may be more than a gallon. If you're very lightweight, it may be less than a gallon. So a gallon is a rule of thumb. Again,
Hmm.
there's variations that could um, change that number, but just start tracking how much water you drink and then look to improve that until you get to that gallon area, on that.
Now, now hold on, Richard, and I'm playing devil's advocate for
Yeah,
the audience, right?
love it.
Because water is not a sexy hack.
It's not.
People are talking about, well, I take all these supplements, and I take athletic greens, and I take, and I've got my mud water, and all these different things that people are
Yes,
drinking. They're supposed
yes,
to be optimizing your brain. But talk about what it actually does for you to have more water. We know dehydration, but most people don't think of themselves as being dehydrated. They think dehydration is something that happens when you pass out and you got to get an IV. But
Yes.
literally, if you're not getting enough water, what's happening to you, and how's that affecting you in your business as a business owner?
Yes, absolutely. So again, I'm not a medical professional. I always want to tell people that and everything. So you have a couple items there, and I like the devil's advocate because it's good to talk about those items because a lot of people have these beliefs in their mind, these biases, these filters that must be dissected. So
Mm-hmm.
with water, the majority of your body is water. And
Yeah.
right, and if you don't have enough of it, are your synapses firing properly? Do you have mental clarity? Do you have a little fog? Do you have enough energy to go through the day? So
Yeah.
one question to ask yourself, and again, it's water, it's nutrition. We'll go into these details also. But if you have parts of the day where your energy starts to dip down, why is that? Don't
Mm-hmm.
don't blame age. I'm not the youngest guy in the world. I know it's a surprise, but people want to blame age or the weather or whatever. They didn't sleep right or which those could come into play, but if you start having dips in energy or mood swings or something that's not optimal, you're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with an employee, you're dealing with a customer, and you can't keep your mental variance crystal clear 100% of the time. There are fundamental items that you can improve to get better at all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then
Mm-hmm.
the word supplements. So people think, "Oh, I'm taking supplements." There's all different types of them. It's endless, from pills to drinks to water and, you know, special teas and aroma candle. I mean, the list is endless and everything.
Right.
Right? So so if you look at it, it has the word supplement. So if you go back and you do the best 100% for your number one client and eat
Mm-hmm.
the healthiest foods 100% of the time and hydrate optimally,
Mm-hmm.
the need for supplements will be almost non-existent. Are there exceptions when your absorption rates aren't there and you have to, supplement with certain, vitamins or something sometimes. But again, go talk to a doctor about that. But the majority of time, it's because you're not eating optimal nutrition. I say optimal, and again, we'll go into a little more detail what that means in a minute. But basically, optimal nutrition is everything you're intaking is the most nutrition dense foods in the world. So, for example, I'll break this down a little bit more. So, there are actually let me pause there. We'll talk about the pharmacy and the kitchen in a minute. So that's the biggest thing is before you go all of these supplements and something that's powdered or liquid, or if it was not food 200 years ago. So everybody write this down. We talk about our secrets, and I want people to write this down.
Mm-hmm.
If it was not food 200 years ago, is it food today? Is it
Yeah.
food today? It really makes you think, right? If it's processed, if it's in a package, is it as good as something that was food 200 years ago?
Yeah.
That's the question to ask yourself. That's the question to ask yourself there. And again, if anybody in the comments, if they see us on LinkedIn, I know we're live streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on multiple platforms. We will be on BossPodcast.com, or not this very moment, but it will be streaming in the near future, probably April-ish on BossPodcast.com. Put in the comments any questions, any challenges. We love these things because it's a way of our audience really communicating of what they need more education on, what they need to have more details so that they
Mm-hmm.
can get inspired to take action. I think that's the key because that's one of our main drivers here is to get people to take action to make their business better. That's the main thing there. So is that a good side of the devil's advocate part?
I think you hit on it very, very well, because one of the things that I think we don't think about a lot, I think we've in modern society come to accept that we have to get certain things. Like, you're not getting enough nutrition, you're not getting enough vitamins, minerals. People say this stuff, and so we tend to think that that's just how it's supposed to be. When in reality, if your doctor was telling you that you need to take supplements for oxygen, you'd be concerned, right? You'd be thinking, what's wrong with the air I'm breathing now? Right.
Great
So
point. Yeah.
if air is vital, and we all know that food is vital for us to be able to eat, and what we drink is so important, then we need to be thinking about the purity of what we're eating and drinking and we're taking into our bodies. One of the things that often clients will say to me when I talk to them about drinking more water is, well, I tried, but it's hard. And, one of the things that even I struggled with was the fact that you have to use a bathroom so much more often. And then I realized I had to stop thinking of it as an inconvenience that I was going to the restroom, because I'm using the water to flush my system of the toxins. And these toxins show up in headaches. They show up in sluggishness and thinking. They show up in being sleepy. They show up in fat and weight gain. All these things that are happening, you're flushing your body all the time. And think about how many times you're eating. A lot of people are eating or snacking or whatever. Maybe they're going to the restroom once a day, if that. So everything that you're eating, your body is just taking and packing it in, and it's stopping you up. And so I liken this to cash flow, right? If your money wasn't flowing, you'd be concerned. Well, if you're not flowing, you should be concerned.
Yeah, very, very true and everything.
And the two go hand in hand. If you're not flowing, your money's not going to flow.
Yeah. I like what you said about the oxygen, because if we had to walk into a room like let's say like a firefighter, and wear oxygen because the air quality was so low, we would think something's wrong with that room, because we're supplementing, right? We're supplementing our oxygen.
Right.
So you have to kind of think about that too. If you need to supplement, your foods, are you eating the right foods? So that's the key. Right. That's the key there. And again, just as a refresher, I know people listen to different parts of the show. We have some loyal listeners that listen to everything. Some listen to different parts of it, which is fine. Yet we do have a framework of what foods to eat for optimal nutrition at gatewaybusiness.com. It goes into great detail with the ratios, what to eat, how much of it. So I would definitely take a look at that. So with that, I'm gonna go. I like the oxygen example, and I want to go into another one. I've used this for years. Is look at the foods in your kitchen as the pharmacy in your kitchen. The pharmacy in your kitchen makes you think, right? So, of course, we've all, most of us have had to have prescription medication at one time or another. So you go to a pharmacist. They have a chemical way they put the medicine together, and it's, for a certain period of time. And, but you want to look at the intake of the food you eat. Those are all different chemicals, right? Different chemicals. And you want to look, right? And the same thing, you wouldn't haphazardly go take, prescription medicines without a trained professional. So the same thing, you want to look at everything you eat, every place. What are you putting into your body to make sure that, again, all of those benefits are there? The crystal clear clarity, there's no fog, you have energy for longer periods of time to be able to, again, make those day-to-day decisions in your business, which are critical. How do you build your culture? How do you work with a customer that may be a little problematic or something of that nature, right? How do you, how do you navigate all of those items? So, so no, that's great. That's great. So again, we went really in detail with that. So I think that's a good topic there. So let's see, what would we cover next? So here's a tool. And again, these are secrets, quote unquote. Everybody sees my quotes, air quotes here. So these are secrets. You must, to know what those ratios are, you must have a calendar to track your time and to have structure for everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there's 168 hours in a week, 24 times 7. We all have the same hours in the week. You, me, Warren Buffett, everybody in the world has the same 168 hours in a week.
Yep.
Right? So when people say work smart, I'm going to work smart, not hard. Well, part of that, quote unquote, working smart is I use air quotes. I know some people can see it, but some people are listening. But so part of that smart is utilizing a tool. Like, for example, there's lots of calendars. I use Google Calendar. It's free. You can put it on your phone, your computer. It integrates with all different types of other programs. A lot of my clients use Google Calendar. And then you can start to time block out time for number one client, time for family. Just block these items out. Right? When do I have my team meetings with my employees? Block that out. Have it consistently. Start putting those structure items in there. When do I do, my activity? Depending on the type of business do you have, when do you meet with customers? Do you have office hours? So, for example, quite a few people, there's a mixture. Some have a location-dependent business, and some people have a business that they can work remotely. So, part of that work-life ratio, do you block out office hours? Right?
Yeah.
Do you literally, have office hours? Let's say, for example, Monday through Thursday between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. That could be an example. And then when you're meeting with customers, they know that's your office hours, just like if you had a retail establishment, right? If I have a retail establishment, very few are open 24 hours a day, so, right? I mean, so it's the same thing when people say, and here's a word that I do not like. People say set boundaries. Boundaries, and people, again, there's going to be people that love this and people that don't love it so much. Boundaries implements some type of weakness, I would say, maybe, or somebody's encroaching on something. And what that comes, right? So you want to go back to a framework. You have a framework, and that framework has structure into it.
Yeah.
Right. And in that structure, again, you communicate it with clients. Hey, my office hours are from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Whatever those office hours are, you communicate that within your framework to your clients and even your employees. I do my employee meetings, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So, so then they're not. And again, are there exceptions? Yes, there's exceptions, but the majority of the time, use a framework with a calendar that you stick to, consistently. That's the key. So then you don't have to worry about boundaries. You'll have more control using that structured framework.
Agreed. There's a couple of things that I want to highlight about what you're saying. One, you got to use your calendar, right?
Yes.
A lot of people have things on their calendar. I'm guilty of this, Wes. So I'm not saying anything that I have not had to become aware of as well. Is that there are times that there's things on your calendar and you just blow through them, right? So you have to actually honor what's on your calendar. But the value of doing that, creating that habit and creating that structure, is that it allows you not just to get more things done, but it lets you execute things at a higher level. Because one of the things that
I think that's worth repeating. If you would repeat that and go a little more in detail, it not only allows you to get things done, but execute at a higher level. Could you give like a specific example of that? I think that's very, very valuable for people.
Yeah. One of the reasons why we're not as productive as we want to be. Like, so people will say, well, I have this to-do list. I got these things to get done. Or maybe you check those things off, but you don't seem like you're getting the results from it. And a lot of times it's because even though you're doing something, there's this sneaky thing that has been around for probably 30 years now that people keep trying to do. And we call it multitasking.
Yes.
And it's really just, it's a fallacy. It's just, you're distracting yourself. So, and the thing that happens, even if you remove all the other quote unquote distractions, all the other tools, is that what happens is that we are not fully present to the work that we're doing.
1000%. 1000%.
And
Let me share. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So again, as we want to do is really break this down so people can be better today at their business than they were yesterday. Right. So I'll give you a very specific example. I had a client recently. Their employees were not as productive as they wanted them to be. So, right. So the employees aren't productive. Well, I asked them, do you have employee meetings minimum once a week, preferably once a day? Depends on your business, but preferably once a day. And then when you said the multitask, it made me think about it. So let's say, for example, you have employee meetings 10 a.m., 5 days a week. And when you said the multitasking, for example, let's say, a customer is calling and you're in the middle of this employee meeting, but a customer calls and says, oh, where's my delivery at? Right? Well, then you're trying to multitask. How can you be 100% focused on that employee meeting and or those employees? If one employee has to leave the meeting because they have to go talk to a customer, and then that employee was not in that meeting where you covered delivery dates. So let's use this example. So you talked about delivery dates. Well, they missed that part of the meeting, that employee. That's because you're trying to multitask. And it goes back, right? It goes back, Fredrick, to like you say, is actually sticking to that calendar. If I'm having employee meetings between 10 and 11, 5 days a week, then I educate my customers, hey, we're having team meetings so that we can be better, a better customer experience for our customers. So our office hours start at 11. Or they, so again, you want to look at, do you really stay laser focused on that one activity, especially when it's a priority? For example, you don't drive and read the newspaper. At least you shouldn't, right? It's like,
hopefully you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. You hope you're not. People do crazy things out there. We've all seen crazy drivers. But that's an example. Throw the word multitasking out the window, because for it's very specific items, you better stay 100% focused on the job at hand, and then you will get much better results when you do that.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off what you were talking about, that example, right, of the employee, of the owner and the employees. One of our clients, he recently lost a team member, and so he's been trying to replace them. And one of the challenges, as he was doing the exit interview, they were saying, well, you just don't seem to be very attentive, right? He wasn't very attentive to some of her concerns. And the thing about it was that because his team, he didn't have a lot of the structure necessary in his team environment, he was distracted when she might say things about it. So he wasn't fully present to the things that she was saying. And we all know that when it comes to communication, when it comes to leadership, it's really important that you tune into what people are saying and read between the lines, to read the body language. There's a lot of cues that we miss when we're not fully present. And in order, we'll talk a lot about optimal leadership in this podcast, but one of the things about being able to be an optimal leader is to be able to understand the things behind the things that people are saying, to understand their deeper concerns and really be able to inspire them. And it's hard to inspire somebody when you're distracted by all the other stuff that's going on. You can't be fully present, even in a one-on-one conversation, or when somebody's asking you for something and you're thinking, well, I don't have time because I have 1,000 other things to think about. You got to be able to prioritize what's happening in front of you in the moment, and honoring your calendar allows you to do that. It doesn't do you any good to have meetings if you're so busy trying to get the meeting over with so you can get to something else that you don't fully realize the point of the meeting in itself, right? To be able to help everybody be able to center, to be able to focus, get everybody on the same page. And you can't do that as a leader if you're not taking care of client number one, if you're not fully engaged in the present moment with the things that you got going on. So I just wanted to touch on that. That really kind of illustrated for me the cost, right? Because the cost of him not being present with that client now costs him the inability to be able to deliver in a certain area of his business, costs him the money to have to hire a new person, costs him the time and the money to train that new person and get them up to speed. And so that cost can run into tens of thousands of dollars. It can run into hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're not able to do that for multiple members of your team, for it to be that in multiple areas of your business. There are things that slip through the cracks, right? Being able to review your accounting on a monthly basis. So if we get in the habit of not honoring our time, not honoring our calendars, we get in the habit of not being present. We get in the habit of creating distractions, allowing distractions to run our business instead of us being the ones that are in control. And I know how much business owners hate losing control, but we're actually we're leaking control minute by minute when we don't take the time to be present, when we don't take the time to really structure our day properly to be able to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I like what you said there. It's several items. One of them is, leaking control, giving up control because we're not structured and we're trying to, like you said, multitask, trying to do too many things. So, like, for example, that one client of ours that had an employee quit because he said that they said that the owner was not attentive. Well, that goes back to they weren't focused and having the meetings consistently. So I think that's something, right? So that's something to look at there too, is it's back to that ratio. Better leadership will have more optimal, more productive employees that are engaged at a higher level. So, right. So I think there's a lot to be said there. And then you're looking at what's the real cause of that lower engaged employee, and you treating the cause and not just the symptom, not just the symptom there and everything. So so that's a big plus there. That is a big plus.
Absolutely. So we got a few minutes left. Where else do we want to lead the audience?
So, again, one of our themes in every show is just that continuous improvement. Focus on success, not perfection. And again, our rule, the 1%, what can you do 1% better in the next 24 hours? Can you be 1% better in how you treat client number one? Can you, for example, can you drink 8 ounces of more water or 20 ounces of more water? Well, that's a lot more than 1%, right? Do you have consistent meetings with your employees?
Yeah.
Right? Are you, like, even customer experience? Where can you make your customer experience 1% better? Again, their experience, not your experience, their experience. Do you communicate better, right? So just find something that you can improve 1% between now and tomorrow, and doing that consistently. So, so again, as with the proverbial saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, and all those things, which is true. So don't try to do too many things in your business. Just pick 3 of them that you want to move forward 100 miles an hour versus 100 items 1 mile an hour, because that's one of the main things we do with our business clients is we tell them what their next move should be. What's your next 1, 2, and 3 moves? So that, and then walk them through all of those steps. And also, I know we didn't mention it at the beginning of the show here, but we are sending out for no cost whatsoever a visual business tool. We will mail this USPS to you. We pay for shipping, we pay for production, because we are focused on long-term business relationships. So if you visit either BossPodcast.com or gatewaybusiness.com and reach out to us through email, or you can text us, and then we will get that in the mail to you. And a lot of people have really been giving us a lot of compliments, saying how nice it was, and just to have that tool, that they could use.
Yeah, it's good to have a reminder. I think a lot of times we talked about structuring your calendar, but you also want to structure your environment to be able to have great visual reminders. A lot of people focus on the vision boards and things like that, but a lot of times it's in between a vision board and the things you want to accomplish, whether it's a house, a car, whether it's vacations or whatever the case may be. Then you got to have the tools to be able to execute on those things. And so having the reminders that let you know, right? So in front of me on my board, I've got the one thing that I need to focus on every week, right? Making my contacts and connecting with new potential clients and things of that nature. That's the primary focus. I got to have the reminder that's up, because we talk about the 70,000 thoughts a day, right? And this kind of goes back to, again, work-life ratio, not balance. Yeah. Imagine if you've got 70,000 different thoughts that are going, a lot of them, like you said, are recurring, right? Same thoughts over and over again. And if the majority of them are negative, let's say that 80% of your thoughts are negative, right? Well, if you could just reduce the number of, or the percentage of negative thoughts to positive to neutral thoughts, right? So you're taking that from 80% to 50%. You have now opened up 30% more capacity in your mind to perform at a 30% better level, right? And that, if you can continue to reduce that 1% a day, just by having a focusing thought, by allowing you to be fully present in the moment. You're not worried about what's happening tomorrow, what's happening tonight. Right now, I get to be fully present in this meeting, to connect with this client, to connect with this vendor, to connect with this employee, to be able to fully be present. That allows you to perform at a higher level. That's how you start getting more results. A lot of times people are so bogged down in their businesses, they're not getting in momentum because they're stuck in this loop, and that loop is really, really foggy. Their thinking is foggy, so their execution is foggy and muddled. And so it's sluggish. And so you feel like you're always stuck in the mud, spinning your wheels. Well, let's clear out some of that mud. Let's start drying up some of your environment so you can start to get more traction, get more momentum, and really start to pick up speed.
Very well said. Yeah, getting that traction, you can then hold yourself to a higher standard by far.
Mm,
And
yeah.
we talked a little bit last week, but let's see. Let's get some survey. Do people want to talk about politics? We were going to cover who to vote for in this election. I know it's controversial. We've never talked about it before, but let's get some feedback before we dive into it. Do you want us to avoid politics and who to vote for, or do you want us to get into that? And again, if we get into that, we're going to lose a lot of people. We're going to gain some people also. Or do we just stay away from it? So I want to get some feedback. People that, from Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you see us at, YouTube, just give us some feedback, because again, we want to customize this for our audience and what they would see the most value in.
Yeah. Drop it in the comments and let us know. Give us a 1 for yes, or just drop a yes. Yes for discussing it. No for run for the hills and avoid it like the plague. Whatever your thoughts are, let us know. We may or may not listen to you. That's a disclaimer.
Exactly.
Well, let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what your thoughts are on the topic for today, what you've been experiencing and discovering from this entire conversation. Work-life ratio versus work-life balance, and allowing yourself to be more structured in your day, taking care of client number one. Those are some of the things we've talked about. What resonated the most for you? What was most helpful for you? And where can they send those comments as well? Besides here, where can they go to connect with us, Richard?
Sure. They can reach out to us on, our BossPodcast.com or gatewaybusiness.com. They can reach out, they can email us, they can text us. And again, we'd be glad to hear from the audience. Any questions, anything that keeps them up late at night. If you have a big challenge or you have an opportunity, if you have a big decision to make, we are here for anything from the very complex in business to the very fundamental. We are here for you.
All the way, all the way. Well, thanks for those of you who stopped by for a second. You stuck out for the entire time. We're grateful to have you here. Thanks for your comments and your questions. For Richard Pierce, I am Fredrick Douglass Bussey. It's been BossPodcast.com. Ever forward.